Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Coach Avery Johnson's gearing up for his third season with the Crimson Tide. This week, he's hosting a 4-day hoops camp for aspiring basketball stars, over 350 young hoopsters. Recent Crimson Tide players like Rodney and Levi Randolph were also in attendance to help Johnson teach hard work, positive attitudes, and sportsmanship. Those are good guys to do it as well. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. It's the dynamic duo. It's matching shirts here. Rodney Orr, I'm Brandon Kamerman. Gary Harris is on vacation. He'll be back next week. As always, though, Gary goes on vacation. We're still sponsored by Buffalo Rock, and we got Diet Pepsi today. Well, Avery Johnson might just be a little bit busy this week, juggling 300. I can barely juggle my 2 kids right now, so 350 kids is a little bit crazy. But he said that he's excited to get to work with the much hyped freshman class as well as the returners.
The competition is good. All of our freshmen can play, and they all have different strengths, and they're pretty much playing to their strengths while trying to learn and adapt to a new culture here with college life. But it's a new, renewed type of energy that we have, and it's pretty interesting how that dynamic is playing out on the court.
One interesting thing, Rodney, that Coach Johnson said was there's been so much hype around these young guys and the incoming freshmen. We'll talk more about them coming up, but there are some returning players who are pretty good, and I think it's important not to lose sight of the fact that there's going to be a lot of talent on this team next year. There also has to be some chemistry, and it's going to take some work to make these guys mesh well together.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing Avery Johnson's done really well at getting the guys to play together. He's done an extremely good job at that. I really think that when you look at the young players from last year, the guys that are coming back, I thought that they really were very cohesive as a team and had a lot of chemistry, and continue to develop that. And I think these young guys coming in, I really think that they're going to buy into what Avery Johnson does. I do. I think the program's headed in the right direction, and feel really good about these young guys.
Yeah, and I mentioned this before, but to see guys like Rodney and Levi Randolph, there's also some great ambassadors for the program, and that probably starts largely at the top. But you talk about some of they had Corbin Collins as a graduate transfer last year. Just some really good guys. Good to see them working with the youth today at the Avery Hoops Camp. Well, the commitments are starting to roll in for this much maligned 2018 football class. I say that facetiously, of course. Last week we discussed Georgia linebacker Quay Walker. Well, soon after that commitment, the Crimson Tide flipped a punter from the University of Tennessee. The top punter in the country, according to 24/7 Sports composite rankings, Skylar DeLong, committed to Alabama after decommitting from the Volunteers. All-American punter J.K. Scott will graduate after this season, making DeLong the heir apparent, perhaps, to the all-important position on the field. DeLong's now the fourth commit of the 2018 class. So, hey, we're starting to build something here, right?
I mean, could you have a better name for a punter than Skylar DeLong? I mean, think about that.
Sky high and
high
it's going
and long. I mean, certainly he's an outstanding punter. Some people think the best in the country. Fort Mill, South Carolina, Nation Ford High School, was committed to Tennessee, as we know, and flipped to Alabama. And again, I think it's obviously with J.K. Scott going into his senior year, it was kind of a must to find somebody that you feel like could be a capable replacement when he leaves.
Yeah, the last few years, that special teams, the kicker specifically, and a long snapper as well with Cole Mazza, it's been the same guys.
Yeah.
But starting to see some of these guys come together, and this special teams now that they're putting together could be pretty good too for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and they had the #1 snapper in the country. You mentioned Cole Mazza, he's done. Thomas Fletcher's going to be a true freshman, was the #1 snapper in the country, and a guy that some people say that he's the best they've seen in many a year. So certainly you have to replace those guys. They're extremely important.
How many times last year did Coach Saban mention J.K. Scott as one of the MVPs of the week of the team? He had a great season, of course, and hoping to have another great season this year. And I just want to address this because I kind of said it jokingly. 4 commitments now for the 2018 class. There's still some time. And again, you've seen it probably as much as anyone. There's some concern among the Alabama faithful, but do you feel like maybe the momentum's starting to pick up?
Well, I've been going over this since February with this with TiderInsider.com, people trying to tell them that, to expect Alabama to be a little bit more methodical in terms of their evaluations and how this process goes along in terms of taking early commitments. And I don't think that there's anything to be concerned about. I think they're in extremely good position with a lot of really outstanding players. As you mentioned, they do have 4 commitments. But, last year, this time, they have 12? And maybe 5 or 6 of those guys didn't even end up signing with Alabama. So, again, it's extremely early. Nothing to be concerned about.
And we talk about the process, and there's sort of a process for recruiting, too, that Coach Saban and his staff have in place. And it seems like this is still a little bit part of the process, seems to me. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, an Alabama baseball player will show off his power at the College Home Run Derby. We'll have the details on that. Plus, a former Crimson Tide golfer took the sport by storm over the weekend. The history-making performance by Justin Thomas when we return. And, of course, coming up, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see how you can get a hold of us right there on your screen. It's 348-WVUA, 348-9882. You can also email us or tweet us with the hashtag TITV. Tider Insider TV returns right after this break. Was chosen to participate in the 8th annual College Home Run Derby at TD Ameritrade Park in Omaha on July 1st. Taylor's one of 6 players selected for the Derby. That recognizes him as one of the top power hitters in college baseball. Of course, he finished the 2017 season leading Alabama in 7 offensive categories, including home runs and RBIs. The Home Run Derby will air on ESPN2 at 8 p.m. Central on July 1st. We'll talk more about Alabama baseball coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to TITV. This was some kind of week for Alabama men's golf. From the Southeast to the Midwest, all the way up to Canada, former and current Alabama golfers were making waves at their respective tournaments. Justin Thomas broke the U.S. Open record for lowest round relative to par in Saturday's 3rd round in Wisconsin. Wasn't enough for Thomas to win his first major, though. The Tide golfer finished 9th overall, tied with another former Alabama golfer, Trey Mullinax. It was Mullinex's best finish on the PGA Tour. But there were winners, too. Robbie Shelton took first place at the Golf BC Championship in Kelowna, British Columbia. That's up in Canada. Shelton birdied his last hole to win the tournament by 1, putting himself in position to earn Web.com status next season. And a current Crimson Tide golfer also took home some hardware this weekend. Jonathan Hardy showcased his skills at the Southeast Amateur in Columbus, Georgia. Hardy cruised to a 4-stroke win at the tournament just weeks after getting a top 20 finish at the NCAA Championships. That was in early June, and of course, Hardy will be back next year, so a lot of talent there. It's good for the program, too. Good recognition for the program. Well, a lot of winning for past and present Alabama golfers, but back to the baseball diamond we go. The MLB first-year players draft has come and gone, with 2 current Crimson Tide players selected on day 3. Relief pitcher Garrett Suchy was chosen in the 26th round by Kansas City. He announced over the weekend that he will indeed turn pro, ending his short tenure with the Tide. Then, we mentioned it before, Chandler Taylor was taken in the 27th round by Minnesota. He has not announced whether he will go pro or return to Alabama for his 3rd season. The All-SEC slugger has until July 15th to decide on his future. Now, one interesting note to point out was senior starting pitcher Jake Walters, who tweeted this out after the draft. He said, "Before day 3 of the draft started, I made, in my opinion, one of the biggest decisions of my young adult life. Notified professional teams that no matter what, I am returning to the University of Alabama to finish my degree." He went on to say he's excited for a new year with Coach Bohannon and his staff and could be more confident in the decision to stay at UA. So there's a lack of high draft picks. I think that was noticeable. I think that was sort of explanatory for how the season went last year. There wasn't a whole lot of talent, high, draft talent on this roster last year. And of course, the 2 high draft picks that were committed to the Tide, that's Bubba Thompson and Jacob Heatherly, they're both foregoing their college careers. They were drafted really high, a lot of money involved in that. So still a lot of hard work for Coach Bohannon to do. This is a roster, again, we've addressed this before, but he's not coming in with a whole lot of talent to start off with.
Yeah, but I'll say this too. Now, with his connections in recruiting and the job that he does and the assistants that he's hiring and bringing in, I think with his reputation, he's going to do a fantastic job of really getting the program turned around in terms of the talent fairly quickly. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, again, he's one of the top recruiters, not only in this the SEC, but in the entire country, and a great evaluator.
One thing I like, too, that we sort of noticed throughout this process is he's been very active on social media. Not that that's the most important thing in the world, but it certainly, you know, recruits see that. And he's been very complimentary of some of these guys who are moving on from the program, or even some of the players who were committed here, signed here, and aren't going to end up coming here because they're going pro. I just think that's a good sign to see, supportive of the program. He's trying to build a whole program here. It's not about individual players. It's sort of about the Alabama brand and what that brings, and I think that's probably the right place to start.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, you know, the exposure that he gets from that, I think is good. It's positive, and, you know, I think, again, what he does as a recruiter and how they evaluate talent is certainly going to be a really big key. There's no question about that. But, again, his reputation is really top of the line at doing it. So, you know, I feel really positive about the direction that they'll head.
And again, we addressed this before, but they brought in assistant coaches who are also known for their recruiting.
Exactly.
Clearly, that's the focus of this team and this program, is they want to bring in really good players. It's a good place to start. Well, still to come on Tighter Insider TV, there is no argument in my mind where the best college softball fans are, and we sort of got some numbers to back that up. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, you see it all right there. Get a hold of us. I know Gary's not here, but I can stand in for at least the time being, and Rodney's right here to answer your questions. Call us 348-WVUA, 348-9882, or tweet us at #TITV. We'll be right back after this short timeout. Fell short of a berth to the Women's College World Series. They did receive tremendous support from fans all over the state. The Crimson Tide led the nation in softball attendance this past season, both overall and on a per-game average. They did add seats to Rhodes Stadium, and continue to get this incredible support from the fans. We hear it as they call us here on TITV every week as well. And we're going to head to those phone lines right now. We're going to start with John in Bessemer. John, how are you doing?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Not much.
Hey, man, I'm trying to find out how is Alabama going to be real good this year like we was last year, or are we going to lose again like we did last year in Atlanta?
Well, John,
I'm getting tired of we losing every year.
yeah, you know, John, I have on my website, I call it a crystal ball, but I really don't have one, so I can't. I would like to be able to tell you what's going to happen. You know, hopefully this year, if they get that opportunity, they can finish a little bit differently. I think they're highly motivated. I don't think there's any question about that. I think when you look at this team, obviously they've got a lot of talent. I mean, I think they're going to be really good offensively. I'm really excited to watch Brian Dable, the new offensive coordinator, and they have some faces to replace on defense. I mean, you know, they've lost a lot of leadership and a lot of really outstanding players, but they've recruited extremely well, so now it's time for some of these other guys to step up.
They have talent. They have motivation. They're coached pretty well, too,
Yeah.
I hear. So I think they have a chance this year. But, hey, there's a lot of other teams who are going to try and beat them as well. So that's part of the game. All right, we're going to stay here in Tuscaloosa. We're going to go to Super Joe. Super Joe, how are you?
What's going on, everybody? It's on tightness.
What's
Hey, Joe.
happening?
Yeah, man. But sure, teachers, what are the weaknesses that you see in Florida State?
Well, Joseph, you know, last year, if you really looked at them, man, it was incredible how many points they gave up defensively to me. You know, they gave up, 63 to Louisville. They gave up 30-plus to several teams. I think they struggled on that side of the ball at times. I think on the offensive side, I really like their quarterback, DeAndre Francois. They've got a lot of really good skilled people. I think they've got at least two really outstanding backs. The question to me, Brandon, is on their offensive line, they really gave up a lot of pressure last year, and Francois took a lot of hits and was on the run a lot. And I wonder, you know, are they going to be improved in that area in terms of pass blocking?
That strikes me as the most interesting individual matchup is O-line versus Alabama D-line. Of course, some changes on the Crimson Tide defensive line. We'll see how they perform. It's going to be a tough test all around the field, but that could be key to how that game turns out. All right, well, thanks for the call, Super Joe. We're going to go to Bluff Park and bring in our good friend Rick. Rick, how are you?
Fellas, how y'all doing? Appreciate you taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
About the punter commit a while ago, or decommit from Tennessee and flipped to Alabama, DeLong. Wasn't there a DeLong that played at Tennessee back in the day, 60s or 70s, something like that? Steve DeLong, I think was his name. Any relation there?
Yeah.
But my main question is, what kind of premium is Coach Saban putting on prime defensive backs for this recruiting season. Appreciate you taking my call, fellas.
You know, to be honest with you, Rick, we've talked about that on TIDerinsider.com about the relationship, if there was a relationship. I really don't know that he was to the former Tennessee player, but, you know, he's certainly an outstanding player in his own right. But, you know, you talk about premium on defensive backs. I think it's one of the spots, if you want to call a top priority of this recruiting class, it's one of those. I would think that and defensive line certainly are really keys to this recruiting class. Yeah, they're after a lot of really top-notch guys. They signed 3 really outstanding defensive backs in last year's class, safeties really, but you know, I guess Kareem McDonald is more of a corner or star. He could play corner or star, probably more the star position, but you know, that's a key. They did not sign one really true corner in last year's class, so they're zeroing in on some really top guys.
All right. Well, thanks for the calls. Coming up on TITV, Alabama track and field's headed around the continent to represent the Crimson Tide at Nationals. We'll have the details on the athletes competing for spots on their country's rosters. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Get a hold of us. We got a whole other block of your phone calls, emails. Call us right now, 348-WVUA. We'll be right back. Thirteen members of the Alabama track and field team are heading to nationals for the United States, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. Football player Tony Brown's one of them, as is two-time national long jump champion Quenisha Burks. That all starts this week, so good luck to all of them. Welcome back to TITV. Emails and phone calls. We're going to start with an email from Andrew, and he wants to know who the incoming freshmen in basketball are and what positions they played in high school.
Well, you know, what a great class, Brandon. You had obviously Colin Sexton, 6'2" guard, maybe one of the top 5 players in the country, depending on who you talk to. John Petty, one of the best players, a 6'5" player out of Mae Jemison here in Alabama, one of the best players to come out of the state in quite a while. I really like the potential of this kid from Clinton, Mississippi, Galen Smith, an interior player at 6'10". Then you have Herb Jones, a 6'7" player from down here at Moundville at Hale County, and Alex Reese, a 6'9" player from up in Pelham. Those are the 5 that they signed out of high school. We know Daniel Giddens is a transfer from Ohio State that was a really highly recruited player a few years ago. He's about a 6'10" guy, and I know they got the other transfer from Texas that has to sit out, Tevin Mack, who was the leading scorer at Texas. So, man, he's really starting to put his roster together with his players, and it's going to be really exciting. All
right, there's some excitement there. We're going to go back to the phones now. Go to Brent and talk to Rick. Rick, how are you?
Fine. How are y'all tonight?
Doing great.
I was just wondering, is there any discussions about having a home and away series on the football team? Because Alabama and Notre Dame's never came to Tuscaloosa yet.
Yeah. Well, I think that certainly would be a fantastic idea, Rick, if you ask me, to get them here in Tuscaloosa. I don't know. I have not heard that there's any sort of a discussion like that. You know, those home-and-home deals aren't as prominent as they used to be, if you remember, among the top teams in the country. It's generally they meet in those neutral site games or whatever. But, yeah, it would be great to get them here. Really would. I'd like to get Texas here too, by the way.
Yeah, it'd be a fun matchup. Now, Coach Saban has said he prefers those neutral site games as they have in the opener against Florida State.
Yeah, and I really like those too. I think there's a lot of excitement on those home-and-home deals, but I do like the neutral site games.
All right, we're going to go to Dale in Moundville. Dale, how are you?
Hey, guys, I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Doing great.
I just got back from vacation around the Pigeon Forge in the Knoxville area, so needless to say, you know, I've been hearing a lot of volunteer talk. I can tell you those folks are really sour about the last several years that they've been beat by Alabama. I just wonder, where do y'all see Tennessee in the pecking order when it comes to Alabama as it stands now?
Well, you know, I think Tennessee's, you know, obviously I think Butch Jones done a pretty good job of recruiting. I think they lost their quarterback, obviously, Dobbs. I think he was really an outstanding player. They've got to replace him. They've got some defensive players that they have to replace. You know, when I look at that East, I think Georgia is a team that should be really strong, you know, in the East. But I don't think they're going to – I think Florida's going to win the East.
Again?
I really do. I think Jim McElwain's going to win the East again. and I think Tennessee's, second, third, somewhere in there. But I think McElwain's doing an excellent job, and I think he'll have them back in Atlanta.
All right, that'll be interesting to see. Last year, the Vols were the heavy favorite coming into the season, but Florida did it again. All right, we'll take one more phone call. We'll go to BT, our good friend. BT, how are you?
Good, Brandon. Rodney, how about y'all?
Oh, we're doing great.
What I'd like to ask is, Brandon, Ronnie, that new transfer y'all got coming in, we got coming in, would he be able to play? He can't play until 2018, right?
That's right, BT. You're talking about Tevin Mack out of Texas. Again, Rodney mentioned this. He was the leading scorer for Texas. He was suspended by head coach Shaka Smart, ended up transferring here. He'll have to sit out this season, but he's going to be a big addition to their recruiting class for next year. So that'll be interesting to see how that comes together. When we talk about the chemistry next year, we talk about this year. Be interesting to see. All right, well, still to come, one former Alabama football player has been hitting the gym. You'll want to see this transformation. It's all coming up on the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns right after the break. Rodney, that is Amari Cooper, and he has been hitting the gym, as you can tell. He is jacked heading into his next season. This is his third season. He has had a great career so far in his first couple seasons, but man, he's looking to do some damage with those guns right there. Looking good, Amari Cooper of the Oakland Raiders. All right, well, our beautiful shirts. There's more than just these two here. There's a whole lot of great shirts at the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa. You're going to have to go check it out. Home of the original elephant wear. If you can't make it into the downtown location, you can always go online at locker-room.biz. Alex Gatewood and his staff will be there to help you out. And, of course, it's the third Tuesday of the month. That means Rodney and I will be at Buddy's in Northport. You can join us over there. We hope to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Tider Insider TV. Again, you can catch a replay after the WVUA 23 news at 10 on 10:30. Thanks for joining us. For Rodney, I'm Brandon. Have a great night.